I'm Beverly Catherine Abernathy Quarles. I am Louisa's maternal grandmother.
Where did our family come from?
My maiden name is Abernathy. I have a good bit of information about the Abernathys. The first information came from Scotland. The information that we have said that they descended from Nathan, the King of Scotland, and they reigned in the year 600 AD. At a later date, the family established relationship with the royal house of Bruce. We have information about the family living in Scotland for years. The first information we have about the Abernathys coming to the United States was Robert I was born in Scotland in 1624, and he came to Jamestown in 1654. He married Sarah Kubish, and it was rumored that he had been in the Tower of London for crimes against the state, the British, and they sent him to the New World. He died in 1685 at the age of 61. We have information about Robert II, the third, and the fourth. All the information down through the years to my grandfather, who was one of 16 children, and then to my father, and then my generation. That's the Abernathy side, my maiden name. I also have information about the Quarles family, which was my husband, Leo Thompson Quarles. His father was Walter Grayson Quarles, and he married Ida Owen Hyson Quarles, who was German. Grayson Quarles, the Quarles family is from England. We have information down through the great, 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 and great, great, great grandfathers and grandmothers of the Quarles family. This was all written down by my mother-in-law, Ida Hyson Quarles.
The earliest record of the Quarles family.
The information that my mother-in-law wrote down was for your great, 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 great grandfather, and that was Gernhardt Hyacin. That was her maiden name, and that was German. And then for the Quarles family, we have it through the great, great, great grandfather, William James Quarles.
Do you know the dates of both?
I don't have the dates for them. I have the dates for all of the Abernathys.
Okay.
But the Quarles family came from Quarles, England.
Okay. How do you know this information?
From written down information from relatives, the information has been passed down to me.
How many generations can you trace back from your parents?
Well, the Abernathys, I haven't counted, there's so many generations. Generations on the Quarles side would be five or six generations.
5 or 6. Can you recall names of either side?
Yes, I have the names. I have a lot of the dates, especially on the Abernathy side.
Can you go through those along with if you have the places of birth and or birthdays?
I do have some birthdays, probably not all of them.
Okay. Can you go through them? Are they in order?
How far back? To the Abernathys, I have my dad, which would be your grandfather. His birthday was February 19th of 1925. And my mother's is March 20th of 1928. My grandfather was born May 1st, 1898, and he married Annie Bandy, who was born February 24th of '04. Before that, their parents, John Sidney Abernathy, was born October of 1871 and died November of 1963. His wife was Emma Ellen Sherrill, and she was born February 8, 1876, and died February 16, 1946. Their parents, John P. Abernathy, was born May of 1841, and his wife, Nettie Harris Abernathy, was born January of 1849.
Okay. Is there a lot more than that? Or
There are a good many more. I don't know how many dates I have. I have a lot of it written information here.
do we have any veterans in our family?
Yes, my father, Blair Abernathy, was a veteran. He was in World War II. And I know that one of my grandfather's brothers was killed during the war. I don't know how many of them were in the service. There were 16 brothers and sisters. There's information about the earlier Abernathys, at least 3 from our side of the family being in the Revolutionary War.
Who were they? Do you know?
Excuse me, the ones who were in the war, the Revolution, were James Abernathy of Massachusetts and David and Miles Abernathy of North Carolina and John and William Abernathy of Virginia. There were also many more from the various other states at that period. Robert, William, James, John, David, Miles, Joseph, Hugh, Alexander, Lawrence, Patrick, Caleb, Samuel, and George are some of the Christian names favored by the family for its males. A few of the many members who have distinguished themselves in America in more recent times are George Abernathy is the one I mentioned, 1807 to 1877, of Scotland, came to New York, later settled in Oregon. Robert Abernathy of North Carolina was an educator, a college president, and founder of Rutherford College. Alonzo Abernathy of Ohio and Iowa was a soldier, an educator, and a college president. And William Ellis Abernathy of North Carolina was the educator, college president, and author.
Can you tell me any stories about our family?
Well, growing up, I heard many stories about the Abernathy family because it's so large. I remember my grandfather saying, when I was really small, I was a picky eater. And he said, well, if you had been in my family, you would not have been a picky eater, because when everybody sat down at the table, you got what you wanted when the plate ran around, because it would not go around again. And he also said that they slept 4 to a bed, and they lived in a 4-room house with those 16 children, and the mother and father, and a great aunt, and a couple dogs. So it was tight in their house, but they all managed.
Do you know what they did for a living?
My grandfather worked in a mill, and then he also had a farm. And my grandfather, after him, had a farm and worked in a mill. But I think they had a lot of children back in that generation to help on the farm.
Were they living in North Carolina?
They were in North Carolina, yes. They lived in Maiden, which is a small town near Hickory, North Carolina, and Statesville.
How long has the family been living in North Carolina? Do you know?
Well, Several of these Abernethys that I mentioned, born in 1807 and died 1877, were in North Carolina. Let's see, there was some information here somewhere about the first one who came to North Carolina. One of the immigrants named Robert settled in Prince George County, Virginia, about 1717, and was living in Bristol Parish, Virginia, as early as 1720. By his first wife Mary and his second wife Sarah, he had issue of John, David, Robert, Miles, Mary Elizabeth, Anne, and Amy. John, the eldest son of the immigrant Robert, married and was the father of 8 sons. It is probable that all of these resided for a time, at least in North Carolina. David, the second son of the immigrant Robert, made his home in North Carolina. He married and had children. Miles, the youngest son of the first Robert of Virginia, married Sarah Ann Good. The later removed to North Carolina. Miles had at least one son named Robert who settled in Kentucky. So at least from the 1700s, they were in North Carolina.
All right. Will you tell me about what the Abernathy name means?
The Abernathy name is of Scottish origin. It's derived from the word Aber, A-B-E-R, meaning ford, combined with the name of the river, Nathy or Nethy. It was adopted by its first bearers because of their residence in the town of Abernathy in the shires of Perth and Fife in Scotland.
All right. Do we have any genealogical records?
We do. I have the information about the Abernathy name, and then I have information about the Abernathys in Scotland and those who came to America. I have the biography here of where all the information came from, so it is documented. The information from the Quarles family was just written down by my mother-in-law, and it was passed down to her through the Quarles family.
Is there any other information that you know about the Quarles side that we haven't talked about? Anything interesting that you might have heard about them? Or
my father-in-law, Grayson Quarles, had to quit work, had to drop out of school when I think he was in the 3rd grade. His mother, he was living with his mother and sister, and he needed to work to help take care of the family. They were very poor. He ended up coming to North Carolina and working for Joe P. Wyatt, a seed company, and he started working for Wyatt Quarles Seed Company when they first began. He started a very lowly position, and he ended up being the president of the company. So he did quite well with his little former education, but he read a lot and was self-taught and obviously worked very hard and did very well.
Thank you for the information about my family.
You're welcome.